Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Hightown, Season 3, Episode 6. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So this is the penultimate episode of the series. So, first and foremost, let's start off with the Renee and Ray of it all, because it ends up being this situation of, well, what are we going to do? Because Renee's like, I'm going to jail. But Ray's like, no, that's not going to happen. Like, the fact is, Alan won't find one of the workers. I mean, as we learned, like, a couple episodes back, at least one of them's dead, so he's trying to find one of them. Even sadly finds out later on that, well, great for Alan, not so good for Ray and Renee, is that he finds out that the lady he's looking for is in... she's here in like Cape Town. So when it's all said and done, Ray's trying to make sure, like, right, it's all going to be good. It's all going to be above board going forward. He's having Renee get rid of all the drugs, like no more selling drugs. We're going to be squeaky clean from now on. He's also shutting himself down because he doesn't his situation with Sarah down, because it's like, we got to be immaculate going forward. Like, all right, no more BS. We got to be as clean whistle as possible. So he instincts with Sarah, which she was very much like, okay, sure, you don't have to get all in your feels about it. You shouldn't even hooked up with a 25-year-old if you're going to be in your feelings. I'm like, okay, I thought that was going to be a little messier than it would be. I mean, to be fair, that similar thing happened with Renee, and that blew up in his face and torpedoed his career. So, I mean, once again, that's Ray. Ray kind of shot himself in the foot in that regard. I thought the same thing was going to happen here. It's like, no, she's like, no, it's good. Like, I'm not in love with you. She's like, yeah, I thought we're having a fun time. That's all it was. It's like, you and Renee, like, hey, I'm glad that's working out for you, but, like, I'm not going to be too butthurt about it. I was like, oh, wow, that's okay. That was resolved a lot neater than I thought it would be. So I thought that was good. I think it's also because of the Leslie of it all, which I even love that Ray and Jackie talk about it, where it's like, you know, because he was like, no, me and Sarah, because Jackie's like, yeah, I know what's going on, and he's like, nah, I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, what about you and Leslie? And it's like, yeah, but you're the one that fell in love with Leslie. And she's like, yeah, you're 100% right. And it's just like, I thought it was so interesting because Jackie still defends Leslie despite everything. I would have been like, nah, F Leslie. But it's like, you know, Jackie's coming from the perspective of, yeah, she was trying to protect her job. Like, I can't fault her, because did she really throw me under the bus, or was she just telling the truth? And Ray's like, no, don't even do that. Like, you know, because it's like, no, we keeping up the hate Leslie train. Why are you defending her? But it's and I guess that in itself is showing, like, just where Jackie is versus where Ray is, where she's like, no, I'm going to take accountability. Like, what Leslie did, she didn't throw me under the bus. She just told the truth as it was, you know? And it's like, I have to take my responsibility for that. Ray's kind of not taking his responsibility for his situation with Leslie's. I mean, once again, it takes two to tango, and, you know? But, I mean, he also kind of is. But, I mean, it showcases that he isn't, because he doesn't acknowledge the Sarah thing. He won't even admit it to Jackie. But Jackie's like, I know you're lying about the Sarah thing. That's fine. I'm just glad to know that you and Renee are in a good place. And he just kind of like, all right, you know, that's a friend for you. But I think it's also just like, yeah, it's a little bit to show you where Ray is, that he hasn't really, like, learned to take personal responsibility, which I think kind of that through line continues throughout the episode. But continuing with the Ray and Renee stuff, Renee ends up grabbing all the drugs, shutting down any, like, selling anything at the club. Picked the perfect time too, because Alan rolls up later, and the only reason why he shows up at Xavier's, he didn't fully believe what Frankie had said last episode, but now it's like, he did it enough last episode to believe it enough to, like, shake the tree a little bit, but he still doesn't want to, like, believe anything Frankie said. It's like, oh, you're probably, like, tossing it to Renee because obviously you got beef. That's your ex. She kind of threw you under the bus, so obviously you're going to want some payback. So this could be your get back at her. So I think that's an element of probably Alan's thinking. But you also have to add in Chuleta, before he had died, had said, like, yeah, he thought Renee did it. So it's like, he knows there might be, where there's smoke, there's fire type of situation. So he does check out Xavier's on Frankie being like, yo, like, it happened at Xavier's. So like, oh, you're still looking for that person? I'm gonna help you out. And it's just like, and Alan made it clear, he's like, yo, I want it clear, I did not ask you to do this. It's like, yeah, but you're still accepting his help because you both it's like, that's the effed up thing. Like, I get it, you want to solve Jorge's murder, you want to put someone bad away. I mean, Alan, like, it ain't like Alan doing this for the justice in his heart. It's like, because he believes, like, Ray's helped covering this up. Well, Ray knew, but he never really acted upon it, so it's like, it still makes you complicit, even more so where the episode goes, but we'll get to that later. But it's just a thing of, once again, Alan sees this as an opportunity not only to take down Renee, but also, like, once again, it's like, hey, you're doing your job, you want to take down a bad guy. Renee killed someone, got away, but especially because Frankie paints the narrative of it was on purpose. It was an accident, but it stopped being an accident the moment you covered up the murder. So it's like, but it wasn't like she purposely tried to kill him. The gun went off and shot him. And she was so scared about Jorge saying something to Frankie, or Frankie finding out, or anyone finding out, so she covered it up. And so I think even Alan's coming from the perspective of, no, she just killed Jorge because Frankie pointed out the narrative. It's not even a narrative, it was the truth. Jorge and Renee hated each other. They did not get along. So it just adds more fuel to that particular fire when it comes to motive. But yeah, Alan showed up at the club at Xavier's, turned the place upside down, but couldn't find anything, not a drop of blood. Found some samples, but, not the samples they were looking for. So it ends up being this situation of they don't have what they need. And even Donna's kind of like, she thought she could turn this place around, but it's like, it's too much. And even Renee's kind of giving her the advice that Donna had given her previously of like, you just leave this place, don't come back. And yeah, and even Donna's like, yeah, I probably need to leave the Cape for a little bit. So that might be like the last time we see Donna and all. I mean, it's understandable. I'd almost want her and Jackie to have at least one more scene before the end of the series, because they haven't interacted at all this season. Cause I want to say, I don't remember if they interacted like a little bit last season, didn't they? I actually don't remember. I swear I feel like they've had a scene or two post, like it was definitely post Junior's death, and it was like, because Junior died in like the second to last episode of season 1, didn't he? Or did he die in the last episode? I don't remember. But I do feel like Jackie and Donna did interact somewhat last season. I don't fully remember, but I'd like them to have at least one more season, because because they haven't interacted at all this season, so we'll see. But either way, poor Renee, she was feeling great. She was like, oh man, it all worked out. Like, Alan didn't find anything, got rid of the drugs. Like I said, perfect timing. Like, she told that stripper, like, yo, you want to sell drugs? You're just going to have to do it somewhere else. But you're just going to go back to, like, working a pole. Understandable. She doesn't get a lot of money because she's kind of a terrible stripper, apparently, as we've kind of showcased. But either way, when it comes to this situation, Frankie did end up he found the person that could help find Angela, the maid, and ultimately called in a tip, and it worked out, and Alan ends up confronting her. I'll give you full immunity, and she throws Renee under the bus, and it's like, hey, Trooper Cooper, make sure she's taken care of and everything. And then, like, he's staring at someone, and my thought was, oh, it's Frankie nearby, kind of giving him that nod, like, yeah, you found what you wanted, right? Was not expecting the person he was looking at across the bow would be Ray. And it's just like that meeting of the eyes, and just Alan kind of giving him a stink eye. Gave him a stink eye before, but Ray was almost like, I know you know about all of this, but like, I don't know if you know about my involvement in all of this. And it's like, once again, he thinks Ray's protecting her, and it's like, he always knew Ray was a scumbag. You stabbed me in the back, you threw me under the bus. Like, I think he once again thinks Ray's gone above and beyond to protect Renee, which he's only done recently, because he only found out for sure recently, just like Alan did. But it's like, he heard what Frankie said, but much like Alan, he thought was complete and utter BS until Renee fully admitted to it. He kind of believed it enough to question her, like, oh, is there anything else you got to tell me? But she never told him until last episode. And so Ray's got in his head, like, right, how are we going to deal with this situation? Doesn't matter what Alan knows. It doesn't mean anything if he doesn't have a witness that can testify to it. So they have to get rid of Angela, and Renee's like, wait, we have to kill her? It's like, no, we're not going to kill her. We're going to pay her off. That's how you got rid of her last time, her and her cohort. So what we're going to do is we're going to sell these drugs, and we're going to make this money and use it to get rid of her. And it's like, because Renee was almost like shocked, but for Ray, it's like, yeah, I've spent like my entire career trying to get rid of these drugs because I hate what they do to people, all the death and destruction that follows. But for him, it's like, I'll toss all that aside if it means protecting you. And in that moment, you see it in Renee's face, almost like, oh shit, like how far Ray's willing to go. She had made that point last episode, like, I just want you to hold me and tell me it's going to be okay. And that was kind of like Ray knowing, like, oh, you actually are going to protect me. Like, it is kind of it all coming a little full circle, just like the dynamic, the ups and downs of that through line of that relationship has always kind of been that. And it's just, like I said, there's still that part of me like, I don't know, she's kind of manipulating. It seems sincere. I don't think it is a thing of, oh, like, she's faking. Like, last episode, I was like, I kind of felt like there's some part of me that was like, crocodile tears, but I'm feeling, there's still that part of me, like, it won't ever fully go away, but I'm mostly feeling the sincerity from that. So, and Ray's going down a dark road, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. Like, is Ray going to get away with this? It's like, you're going to end up compromising yourself. And to be fair, Ray was already kind of compromised to some extent anyway, but this is some next level stuff, because this is the epitome of going up against everything you believe. So, that's going to be interesting to see. I'm curious to see, because Frankie doesn't want to kill Renee. He also don't want to kill Ray because it's like, that's going to be too much heat. But I think it stems from, he wants her locked up because it's like, right, I was locked up, so it's time for you to pay the piper for you screwing me over. I want you to feel the same way. Cause I doubt, he has a connects, he could have her killed in prison easily, but I don't think he would. I think he'd want to make her life in prison a living hell. I mean, even without his interference, it could be. Like, Renee, definitely won't do well in prison, but especially if he puts in the word and like pays off people to go out of their way to make her life even more of a living hell than it most likely would be. I can see that. I don't know how this is all going to play out. I just don't know who's going to live, who's going to survive this situation. I'm like, it could go in a multitude of ways of how this could play out. So that's where that situation lies. We catch up with Charmaine and Osito. She's kind of got her own situation in Miami, but she's not running things like she thought she would be. She's kind of at the bottom of the barrel. She works for a guy who works for the big time. Her name is Lady Castro. She's the big timer, but like Charmaine's on the lower end, and the guy she works for sucks. But the big boss doesn't know how much this guy sucks. So Osito, obviously, he needs a connect, to kind of help him rebuild his operation. And so he wants Charmaine to like take him to like introduce me to this guy who will help us get introduced to Lady Castro. But then they go to his house and it's like a mess. Security's laughable. The guy's just like balling out and just being crazy. And Charmaine's like, do you want an introduction? And Osito's like, fuck no. It's like, right. Like, rather than worrying about telling the boss how much of a failure this guy is, how sucky he is, because Lady Castro has no idea how much, as Charmaine puts it, how lame he is. So they come back later on and they rob the place. And I love that it's like, yeah, like the safe wasn't even locked. They jacked him. And later on when he's explaining things to Lady Castro, the dude's like, yo, like, they were armed. They got in and out of a minute. And Charmaine's like, he's lying. The safe wasn't even locked. It was a squirt gun, but he was so high he didn't even realize it. Oh, like Madison? Like, oh yeah, how old is she? Like if she gets mixed up in something, she's most likely going to tell her parents. Her parents are going to get the cops involved. That's more of a headache. So Lady Castro takes care of that. At first I was like, it seemed like the type of situation they'd kill you. They were busting your face open with a gun until they just drowned you in the pool. And you could tell Charmaine seemed a little bothered by that, but then Lady Castro was like, oh, so how are we going to, like, expand my business and make me more money? And Charmaine kind of smiles. It's like, I think she kind of felt a little bad, like, oh, I know you suck, and it just, but I mean, I wasn't trying to get you killed, but I mean, it's like, well, not necessarily word, but phrase. I guess the more apt phrase would be like, the price of, God, what was the other word I was looking for? It's the price you pay for being in this business. It's what I'm trying to say. I couldn't find the exact phrasing I'm trying to think of. But Yeah, that's and I mean it works out. Osito's getting back in the game because of this connect, so he does do business with Shane, which we'll get to in a second. But the Charmaine situation is actually even sadder because she had brought up the whole point. Like, obviously, she has to be careful because she can't even go back home because it's like the cops would be on her immediately. That's also like her biggest concern of like she was afraid to make any big moves because it's like if she screws up, the cops like up north would like come rain hell down upon her after everything. But also, she has nothing to go back to. It's like, man, my sister's going the only family I had left that I really cared about, especially because you feel directly responsible for your sister's death too. So I'd actually kind of let that slip my mind until she brought that. I was like, all right, I forgot about your sister, man. That sucks so much, man. I mean, it's like that's your fam, but also you were a team on top of that, So we kind of had each other's back type of situation. But yeah, I mean, I guess anything to kind of fill that void, and that's what like a lot of these characters are doing. Like they're mixed up in the game in some shape or form, whether it's being on the client side of things, whether it ends up being on the business distributing side of things. Everyone's trying to fill some hole, whether it's lining their pockets or filling some void inside of themselves to some extent. That's just what this whole situation is all across the board. So there's that. But shifting gears over to the Shane side of things, and this ties into the Owen stuff, where they have a meet with Owen and Sarah, but Owen drives off. Problem is, like, at first I was like, does it seem like he's suspicious of her? Like, where's this going to go? He's speeding. An officer, like, ends up trying to pull him over, and Owen wants to speed, like, try to get away from him, but Sarah's like, nah, this is going to cause more issues, so just, like, chillax. But Owen wasn't chill. Forward. I mean, I get it. You're the wanted suspect in that shooting situation back in episode 4, so it makes sense why you're obviously on edge because your uncle told you to get back on the water, but you're so busy like trying to hook up with Sarah. Obviously they put you in that position, and Ray tried to get the word out to that. I don't know if it's state trooper or whatever, that cop who's pulling Owen over to try and get him to. I think it probably would have been extra suspicious if he had let him go. It probably would have drawn it. Like, there was no, like, easy way around that situation. That situation was going to be fucked regardless. Because Owen would have been like, wait, why did he just let us go? That was weird. Because it's like, I mean, maybe Owen's enough of an idiot. Maybe he won't think like, oh, the guy didn't run my plates or whatever. But it's like, that's why he didn't. Because, I mean, he's sure every cop already knows about it. So that's why he's like, I'm not going to show you my ID. You didn't recognize my face, but if I have my ID, so I'm just shoot you. Sarah tried to warn him. I was like, yo, gun. But the way Owen heard her say that, it's like, are you a cop? I was scared. I was like, is he about to kill Sarah? Luckily, well, he shot her, but luckily it was like in the shoulder, so she survived. Sadly, the other cop didn't. There's almost, obviously, very poetic that it's Jackie that's there with him. She's like, it's okay, and being there with him. It's just like she's found herself there too many times around. I mean, it's just part of the job too, but it still just doesn't make it any easier just being around death like that. So everyone's after Owen for being, a cop killer. Sarah is okay at the end of the day. Later on, Jackie, I forgot how she went about it, but basically using her connect from her other job, she's like they're able to track down the boat that Owen was most likely on. And I love home dude that's with her is just kind of nervous. He's like, yeah, we're going to get him. And he's practically about to throw up. But yeah, they go in the boat. Owen already bailed. I guess sadly they got there too late. Either Owen never went back to the boat after killing that cop and shooting Sarah, or maybe he did, but then his uncle called him out. Who knows? Either way, Shane brought him out there. I'm like, you're isolated, you're alone. It's like, yeah, Shane's going to kill you. It's like, he is, because it's like you fucked up too many times. You're family, but you're too much chaos. And so, and he started telling this story about, yeah, your mom, I made a promise to her to take care of you. And he does. And he ends up, I was like, I don't know where this is going. At first I was like, you're going to stab him? Like, what are you going to do? And it's like, well, you didn't go for the headshot. You just shot him and let him bleed out and die. And it's just like, damn. Just once again, like, Owen's been a major fuck up the entire season. His uncles had to course correct him multiple times, and he still fucked around. So later on, Osito rolls up and is like, yo, like, I want you to know we had nothing to do with that. It's funny because the cops actually think Osito's the one that popped Owen. No, I mean, it kind of makes sense. No one would think that Shane would kill his own blood. But it's like, yeah. And it's like, oh, left him out in the open because that way they stop looking for Owen. Like, the moment they find Owen, they're going to stop the search. They're not, because Shane's situation would get tossed and turned, being they'd come to him looking for Owen. So it's like, you're going to screw up my side of things. So to keep my lane clean, I'm going to like basically kill my nephew, leave him out in the open for someone to find, you know? So things are kind of closed on that front, and they don't really have an end to Shane's operation. But yeah, Osito like says like, right, I want you to know whatever our beef is, it wasn't personal, it was business. Which I love that line from Shane being like, yeah, that's, we all make that mistake thinking like, right, you take money from somebody or you give money to somebody, you hurt somebody, like it is personal. You can't separate the personal from business. It is all personal, you know? But he's like, yeah, you and me, we're good. Because it's like, yeah, we you know, had a tit for tat, eye for an eye, literally in this situation. So it's all good. Give me a couple days. I mean, you can tell Shane's going through it, but I was almost like, you don't think he's gonna like take himself out in a process? I was like, I don't think he would, but who knows? You're not in the best state. I mean, not only is your nephew dead, you're responsible. You killed him with your own hands. So that's gonna be interesting to see where that goes. I'm so curious because I thrown out the last episode of like, how this all going to play out, because it's interesting too because Shane has his relationships with Frankie, but he's also about to do business with Osito, so that's going to like potentially be a conflict of interest potentially. So the two of them bumping heads. So Frankie's on his vendetta against Renee, but he's also got heat for Osito as well, especially because Osito's also got to get Frankie back because he doesn't know Frankie's the one that sold him out. It's like, right, he told him about Janelle and they were Owen, and then were able to follow her to Osito. So it's like, that's on Frankie. So there's that. So Frankie's also responsible for you losing an eye. And he also like had Vernon. And I mean, we haven't cut back to him, so I'm assuming he is straight up dead. We just never got a clear-cut answer. At least for me, it never felt like a clear-cut answer last episode. So that's going to be interesting. And I just don't know who's going to be left standing when it's all said and done. Kind of feel like I still feel like Frankie's going to die at the end of this series, despite everything. Maybe it's going to be a him and Osito. I don't know. I just don't know how that's going to play out, because like we got the three heavy hitters. Because like there's Lady Castro, kind of just on her own lane, but you still have like the Shane of it all, Frankie, as well as Osito. I think Charmaine's going to walk away from this okay, but I don't know. I don't know how this whole Renee and Alan thing is going to play out. And then finally, we've got Jackie talking to the cop she ran into when it came to Petey's murder, the cop that was investigating it. So she needs help looking into the Fallbrook situation, and well, I guess maybe even Petey's house is still in the Fallbrooks area. Maybe it falls under that town or whatever. But either way, she goes over to this place. I was kind of getting a little nervous. I was like, well, it's not the cop I thought it was going to be. But I was like, I don't know, man. Like, he's like, yeah, come over to my house like an hour or so. I'm like, well, I'm not feeling that. Not feeling that at all. And lo and behold, we get the reveal. Because he was quick to try and throw the blame. So it's like, oh, it could be this particular person. But then we find out he is the one that killed Maxine, because the moment Jackie walks past his room, she sees the freaking musket. I was like, that's why, because I thought that was weird that they didn't include that in the recap, but it never crossed my mind because I forgot about the angle of what most likely facilitated like the murders, you know, in situations is, you know, Maxine stole something from somebody, ended up giving it to Petey, and that's what also got, I didn't even remember to correlate any of that, but that's the thing that was stolen. Like, she stole a whole damn musket. I mean, the cop even said, like, yo, it's the most expensive thing in this entire, like, memorabilia, like, room. So Jackie's like, yeah, I gotta go. Like, you know, I'm gonna send a picture of this to my friend, you know, who knows I'm here. He's like, put the phone down. Put the phone, and even before he even finished the word, it cuts to black. You're like, damn. I was like, oh, Jackie. I was like, there's no way they're going to kill Jackie. But it's like, wouldn't be the first show. There's been a handful of shows that decided to kill the main character at the end of it. But hell, I wasn't expecting. I didn't know where the setup was going to be for the series finale, and it's a hell of a setup. These storylines, I just, like I said, it's a million different ways these things can play out, and I think we're not going to. We might walk away with some neutral to happy endings on some parts, but I think across the board, it's not going to end good for a lot of people. I don't. There might be a lot less death than I think next episode, but I just don't think we're gonna have a lot of happy endings. We're probably gonna have, like I said, neutral to okay / good, but no great endings for some people. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see ultimately where the series finale takes us with all of this, how this series comes to an end. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.